Yes, I will talk about the same thing as Josefina, but seen from an observer, not from a theoretician. So I will speak about stellar evolution as observed with CoRoT and Kepler. Josefina has introduced two important parameters: the frequency of maximum oscillation Umax, the large separation delta nu, and if we plot all the beautiful data observed by CoRoT and Kepler, we have such a figure with a lot of physics explaining why we have here a marvelous fit from the sun to the red giants, including now semi-regular variables, and we can go down to the red supergiants. I will not focus on those stars. You will have a talk by Denis on semi-regular variables after the break. So, as I said, we have a marvelous fit with the exponent here very close to 3 or 4. But it's not only a fit. This proves that the mass scaling relation is accurate and that we see stellar evolution starting at the subgiant, not in the main sequence, but starting as a subgiant with full of stars with almost constant mass climbing the RGB and evolving. But we can do much more if we don't work with this variable, the surface gravity, but with another global seismic parameters. I show it in a spectrum. You have here an initial diagram of a red giant. Radial modes, quadruple modes are aligned in an initial diagram, and you see this forest of peak well organized if you understand the structure of the mixed modes and of the rotational spacing. And an important parameter is the large separation, but another important parameter just for identifying the mixed modes is the period spacing, delta pi 1. It works also in subgiants. It's more simple. Again, you have radial modes, quadruple modes, quietly aligned in a A-shell diagram. And in order to understand the mixed mode pattern, you need to introduce the period spacing. And in fact, doing so, you don't only measure a global parameters, delta pi 1, you also probe the inner radiative region of the star, so you have a direct view into the stellar core. And that's why I intend to construct this diagram with delta pi, the period spacing, a direct view on the core, and the large separation delta nu with the properties of the envelope. I will use Kepler public data, but you have understood, following Ron Gilliland's talk, that I don't believe that 4-year-long Kepler data provide any useful scientific signal. So I will say public data, but in fact these are just simulations. Okay, the data are from Kepler and the method are from CoRoT. I would like to emphasize that the asymptotic expansion is very useful for extracting the large separation. But you need, because the precision of the data is so high, to use a second order asymptotic expansion. And you will see in a poster made by Mathieu Vrard that you can have glitch-free measurement, precise measurement of the large separation. The glitch are due to the second helium ionization zone, but you can avoid such noise, and you can explain many things if you work properly. So see Mathieu's poster, please. An asymptotic mixed mode expansion is also necessary to extract this parameter. So it's asymptotic, but it works, and it works well. Another caveat is that scaling relation can be calibrated not only on the sun, as many people do, but on many stars. And in that respect, it is certain that you have better calibration when you don't calibrate only on the sun, but on many stars all along the evolution. And here is a result with a large separation, so the envelope properties, the core properties, and you have almost no uncertainty on delta nu. Here, large uncertainty because the number of observed mixed modes is low. But we can have much more. First, we can add the information of mass extracted from the scaling relation. And you see that high mass stars just appear here on the RGB. In fact, they are not on the RGB before or in the secondary clump. But we can have much more if we look in detail the property of the stars. Here, I just plot the subgiants. You see that there is no special relation between the envelope and the core. And when the RGB starts, then at least for low mass stars, for mass lower than 1.315 solar mass, you have a degenerate relation between the envelope and the core. This represents the fact that we are on the RGB with the property of the core and the envelope closely related. And this is not the case here for the subgiant. And the limit here between subgiant and red giant is very clear. You have less than 10% uncertainty in both parameters. If you look at delta nu, you know that above 40 microhertz, it is a subgiant. Below 35 microhertz, it is a red giant. There is so a spread here due to higher mass stars. They arrive on the RGB, and they are in states similar to this one. And here we have a large spread, certainly due to the bump. As we know, we have a clear difference between the RGB and the clump stars. And you understand why we call them clump stars, because we have a real clump. And you see that there is a clear mass structure there, but we have to focus on this. We will do this after. Higher mass stars are in the secondary clump. And again, there is a clear difference between the first clump, stars, low mass stars having started the helium the fusion of helium in explosive condition, and higher mass stars with a progressive helium burning stage. But we have more stars. This one, progenitors of the secondary clump, which with delta nu much below the extreme value, indicating that they are much more bright, and they have low, large period spacing value. In that respect, they are different from A star. A stands for beginning of the AGB phase. We see all these low mass stars having exhausted helium in their core and reaching the asymptotic giant branch with a low mass or with a high mass. So we have very clear seismic markers of stellar evolution, and this is fully model independent. And as I said, the limit here is precise, here is precise. We can follow secondary clump stars before and after the clump phase, and we have the end of the clump phase. But we have more. We have here stars with S. S for flash, helium flash. Okay, you could believe that I am unable to provide accurate data, and these should be fake values. They are not. According to what we know, these are stars undergoing the fusion of helium in explosive condition, as was predicted by Wilson et al. You have here the Bruin-Weissala cavity, highlighted in red for a clump star, in blue for RGB stars, and you see that the value of the period spacing is inversely proportional to the size of the cavity. And during a subflash or between subflashes, this cavity is much smaller, not much, is smaller or bigger, so with bigger or smaller period spacing value. This explains the spread of the value here. We can now compare this data with simulations. Here are a set of models derived from the MESA code from Stello et al. You have the RGB, you have the clump, main clump, secondary clump. Okay, I'll just remove the color because the colored information now is observation. And you see that the agreement on the RGB is perfect. You see that the exit of the clump fits well, but observed stars in the clump are there, not here. And the order in the secondary clump is not okay. So we can use this observed data for enhancing the properties of the models. And with other models, including overshoot in the core, we can fix, so this is the star evol code and computed by Nadège Lagarde. We can fix now the agreement of the period spacing in the clump phase, and we see the correct evolutionary tract of the RGB. We have here, in fact, a 1.5 track, so it fits well in the clump, but with some messy things due to numerical problems. And you see that the sub-flashes here more or less correspond to what we observe. So, what I want to emphasize now is to show the difference of what we had before CoRoT Kepler and what we have now. All the stars I have presented are here in this HR diagram, but these are effective temperature and luminosity calculated, not taking seismic data into account. You have here the error bars, the error box. And here are the same stars with the seismic data. In this region, of course, we may imagine that we have here subgiants and here red giant, but we can have a clear structure in this region coming from asteroseismology. You see that clump stars are not well located here, but we have here a very precise horizontal branch with a structure, a fine structure governed by the mass, of course. The more massive the stars, the higher the temperature. But we see also the vertical structure in the clump between low mass stars and high mass stars, and we can make the difference between RGB stars, clump stars, stars having exhausted helium in the core or in the helium flash. That means this is just a zoom. If you want to use clump stars as stellar candles, we can now make the luminosity much more precise with the seismic information and have a much more precise location of the stars in HR diagram. So we have very clear views because we have mixed modes that probe the core region, and they enhance the information we can derive from the classical parameter of the stars. We have gained precise markers of stellar evolution. If I refer back to the diagram, we know, just depending on the location of a star in the diagram, in which evolutionary stage it is. We have a so precise timing of evolution in all phases, and especially in the helium burning phase, that in fact, I can say in a provocative way that we have observed stellar ages. Of course, to get ages, we need models, but the accuracy of the data is so high that the chronology of evolution is well determined. I finish with these tracks. These are not models. These are derived from the from the Kepler public data. These are the mean observed evolutionary tracks of low-mass stars in seismic H-shared diagram. Thank you.
Thank you, Benoît, for this very nice talk. So some questions, Dennis?
Hi, thank you for that. So the plot that you showed, that is basically that one, but with the dots on them. The higher mass stars on the RGB, yep, they don't just go above,
yeah,
they also go below. Do you have an explanation for that? You expect from the models that higher mass stars will be above the lower mass stars on the RGB, as you also have, but you also have some that actually go below.
It fits with the model, but what we see,
I'm talking about the RGB,
is that if we follow just each masses individually, we see that we have a common exit.
I'm talking about the RGB.
For all.
The RGB.
I'm sorry, you are.
I'm talking about the RGB, where for low mass stars, they follow the models perfectly in a very thin line, in agreement with your small error bars. But for the higher mass stars, where from the models we expect them only to be higher in delta P, you also have some that are lower. Why?
It's a question to ask to modelers and theoreticians. I don't know, but I know that my data, that the data reduction is okay.
Saskia?
Thank you very much, Benoît. I just have a question. You said that you have the edges between, say, the subgiants and the red giants on the RGB is very clear, yeah. But I missed what your criteria were to get those boundaries. Could you maybe repeat that?
What is the definition of a red giant? For me, a red giant, according to this, is a star where the property of the envelope are univocally related to the property of the core, just because of the physics of the hydrogen burning shell. And we see it. We have no link between the core and the envelope. We have a link. This is the physics of red giant, with the envelope and the core closely related. It's
I don't understand,
physics.
because you have mixed modes, so there is a relation.
No, it's physics. It's not mode, it's physics. The property, the expansion of the envelope is just related to the contraction of the core. This is the definition of a red giant.
And how did you include that in that figure? How do you come to 35 to 40?
You have here spread,
doesn't
large spread, and low spread. The difference is just a different physics. Here, starting here, the properties of the core and the envelope evolve simultaneously, independent of the initial mass and almost independent of the metallicity.
Good, thank you.
Model independent.
Yes, hi. Yeah, I just have a simple, here, yes. I just have a simple, quick question, general question. Has oscillation been detected for massive stars on the main sequence? This will be G modes. Two solar mass stars on the main sequence. Has the oscillation been detected at all?
Okay, I did not pay attention so much to main sequence stars. I only paid attention to stars with a radiative inner region in which we can have gravity waves and then mixed modes.
Anybody notice?
And
this will be the stars that have no surface convection zone, just pure on the main sequence, like
okay.
Two solar mass. So just general question.
Team Bedding will address this point this afternoon, but Eric
I think there are many people here who could tell you, but the idea, are you talking about solar type oscillation? No, because you have oscillation in two mass stars known for years. Classical pulsator include two mass stars on the main sequence. Well, let's say 1.8, 1.9, okay? But then for solar type modes, as far as I know, there have been claims of solar type modes detection on massive stars, but only a few. That's it. So I don't know if I answer your question. I'm not sure. To understand. No, I'm talking about P modes here. No G modes at the moment. Well, for delta Scuti stars, which are the 1.8 mass stars on the main sequence we are discussing before, they are mixed modes, so you have G properties also. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that's all for the questions. Oh, is there anyone else? Oh, okay. Sorry.
Just a quick question about the helium flash stars. So presumably that's it's a pretty fast phase of stellar evolution, and you can calculate an expected number of how many stars how many red giants you would expect to find in the Kepler sample that are still helium flashing. Does that number agree with the number of detections you have?
Yes. In fact, I have not analyzed 13,000 of stars, but I have picked 3,000 of them, and in this diagram I have plotted almost all stars in this region, almost all stars in that region with a high mass. But of course there are much more RGB stars, but always the same, and many, many clump stars, always the same. So since I have made the choice, it's hard to have a statistic. But according to the number of stars here I have, it pretty well agrees with the Bilston et al. Prediction, and it's compatible with the timing of evolution. Of course, I am quite certain that we miss stars in this region or in that region because I don't know why, but stars undergoing the helium flash have lower amplitudes than other stars.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all for the first part of the session. Thank you.